Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Jackson from Lester Elementary School, and I'm going to start reading to you today a chapter book, and I'm going to take 4 days to read this chapter book to you. I'm going to read 2 chapters each day, and each day I'm going to practice with you a comprehension strategy or 2. So let's get started. The comprehension strategies I'm going to work with you on today are going to be questions and visualizing. Let's go over questions first. Questions is when you ask a question about the story. You make up your own questions about the story, you answer your questions when you are reading, and they usually start with words like who, what, when, where, why, how many, or phrases like I wonder. So we are going to think before we start reading about a question we have about the book, and then as we go along, I want you to ask questions. And trust me, you'll have questions as I'm reading this story to you. The other strategy we're going to work on is visualizing. And this is where you make a mind movie as you read. Remember that good readers are good listeners, and they make connections and they ask questions. And they can visualize what they're either reading or listening to. So as I'm reading to you, I want you to have a movie happening in your head. And this is going to be a great story in order for you to make a movie. So while I read, make pictures in your mind of what the story may look like. And you're going to do a good job with this. I just know it. So these are going to be the strategies we're working on. Visualizing and asking questions. So the story I'm going to read to you today comes from a series of one of my favorite authors of one of my favorite characters. The author is Barbara Park, and the character is Junie B. Jones. And the book that I picked to read to you is called Junie B. Jones and Some Sneaky, Peeky Spying. Now, I want you to think of a question you have about this story before I begin reading. Let me show you the cover a little bit better. Because you might be wondering, I wonder where she is. Why is she surrounded by laundry? Also, the title makes me wonder, who's she spying on? And we know Junie. We know she gets in trouble. We know that she's fresh. We know that sometimes she has a tough time. So maybe your question could be, I wonder what kind of trouble she's going to get in the story. So think for a second about a question you may have. And share it with somebody around you, or share it with me. You can tell me too. All right, good job. So remember, as we're reading, ask questions, make a movie in your head. And last thing I want to mention before we start reading is that reading, yes, we practice a lot of strategies, but I also want you to have fun with reading. And Junie B is a great character to read. And if you have any of her books or other books at home where there's a lot of dialogue, meaning conversation, I encourage you to read in a silly voice, to become that character. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. Read it over and over again, because reading is supposed to be fun. So besides practicing our strategies and practicing our fluency, also just have fun. We're going to have fun reading this. All right. Chapter 1. Sneaky, Peeky Spying. My name is Junie B. Jones. The B stands for Beatrice, except I don't like Beatrice. I just like B, and that's it. I go to kindergarten. Kindergarten is what comes before first grade, except for I don't know why it's called that silly word of kindergarten, because it should be called 0 grade, I think. Doesn't that make sense? My teacher has the name of Mrs. Mrs. That's it. She has another name too, but I just like Mrs. and that's all. Mrs. has short brown hair and long skirts of wool, and she smiles a real lot. Except for sometimes when I'm noisy, she claps her loud hands at me. She makes a face like that. It used to scare me very much, only then I got used to it. And now I don't even pay attention to it anymore. That when I'm noisy and she claps her hands, I just don't even pay attention. I wish Mrs. lived next door to me. Then me and her would be neighbors and bestest friends, and also I could spy on her. Spying is when you be very quiet and you look at people through a peeky hole or a crack or something. I am a good spyer. That's because I have sneaky feet and my nose doesn't whistle when I breathe. Last Friday morning at Grandpa Miller's house, I hid it in the dirty clothes hamper. That's what the picture's of. Then my grandpa came in the bathroom and I lifted up the lid a tiny teeny bit and I peeked my eyes at him. And guess what? Guess what? Grandpa Miller took his whole teeth right out of his head. That's what. I popped right out of the hamper. Hey, Grandpa, how'd you do that crazy thing? I hollered. Then my grandpa screamed very loud and he runned out of the bathroom speedy quick. Grandpa Miller has high blood pressure, I think. Pretty soon, Mother hurried into the bathroom with angry feet. I have sneaky feet. She has angry feet. That's it, she yelled. No more spying. This is the last time I'm telling you. Do you hear me, Missy? Do you? Yes, I said, 'cause you're hollering right in my ear. That's why. Then Mother took me home, except for she kept on staying mad at me. Find something quiet to do, she said, kind of growly. Your baby brother has to take his morning nap. So then I thought about what to do, and a very great idea popped into my head. First, I took off my loud shoes. Then I tippy-toed into baby Ollie's room in just my sock feet, and I spied on him through the bars in his crib. That's me doing it right there. Because what could be quieter than sneaky peeky spying, of course? Only too bad for me, because that boring old baby just kept on sleeping and sleeping, and he wasn't being fun. So that's how come I accidentally blowed on his face. And I tickled his nose with a ribbon, and I shouted, "Wake up!" in his ear, and guess what? Guess what? Ollie opened his eyes, that's what. Then he started crying very loud and Mother runned into his room. Only she didn't even see me, 'cause I quick hide it in the closet. 'Cause I'm sneaky peeky. I smiled to just myself. I'm the bestest spyer in the whole wide world, I said inside my head. That's how come when I rode the bus to school that day, I did a little bit of bragging. I'm the bestest spyer in the whole world, I said to my bestest friend named Grace. Then I took off my shoes and I showed her my sneaky sock feet. See, I said, see how quiet they are? You can hardly even hear those guys. After that, I breathed in and out for her. And see, my nose doesn't whistle either, I said. That Grace smiled. I'm good at spying too, she said. I patted her. Yeah, only too bad, Grace, but you can't be as good as me 'cause I said it first. That Grace did a mad breath at me. It is called a huffy, I think. I heard your nose whistle, Grace, I told her. Just then, the bus got to school, and me and that Grace raced each other to the playground, except she beated me there, only it didn't count because I wasn't really racing. Then we played horses with my other bestest friend named Lucille, only pretty soon the bell rang, and we all run to room 9 speedy quick. Mrs. was at the door waiting for us. Good afternoon, ladies, she said. Good afternoon, lady, I said right back to her, polite. Then Mrs. smiled at me. That's because she is the nicest teacher I ever saw, and so I wish me and her were bestest friends. And guess what else? Guess. I wish I could hide in her hamper. That's the end of chapter 1. How did you do making that movie in your head? I bet you did a good job. Junie makes it easy. All right. Chapter number 2 is called Questions. My question is, I wonder what the questions are. Me and my bestest friend Lucille sit at my same table together. My table is where I sit up straight and I do my work and don't talk to my neighbor. Except I keep on forgetting that part. I wonder where Mrs. lives, I whispered to Lucille real quiet. Shh, said Lucille. We can't talk or else we'll get in trouble. And anyway, you're not allowed to know where she lives because it's a secret. Says who? I said. Says my brother, that's who. And he's in 3rd grade. And he says teachers have to keep their house a secret or else kids might go there and throw rotten tomatoes. I did a huffy at her. Yeah, only I don't want to throw rotten tomatoes, Lucille, I explained. I just want to hide in her hamper, and that's all. I don't care, she said. You're still not allowed, because my brother said so, and he knows more than you do, so there. I made an angry face. So there is not a nice word, Lucille, I said. Then I made a fist at her, except for Mrs. saw me, and so I had to unfold it. After that, I behaved myself very good. I sat up real straight and I did all my work. Work is when you use your brain and a pencil. Only sometimes I accidentally use the eraser too hard and a big hole rubs in my paper. Has that ever happened to you? Hey, I did beautifully today, I called out, because guess what? No hole, that's what. Mrs. came to my table. She put a gold star on my work. You did do beautifully, Junie B, she said. Maybe I'll hang this one on the wall for Grandparents' Day on Monday. Would you like that? Yes, I said, only I keep on forgetting how come those guys are coming to this place. Then Mrs. explained to me all about Grandparents' Day again. She said our grandparents are coming for a visit and we get to show them room 9 and also we get to have freshments together. Mrs. said freshments are cookies and beverages. I raised my hand. Yeah, only I don't think I'm allowed to have the kind of drink named a beverage because I'm only allowed to have milk and juice and that's all. Mrs. looked up at the ceiling with her eyes. Then I looked up there too. But I didn't see anything. How many of you think you can bring cookies on Monday? Asked Mrs. I can, I hollered very excited, because my mother is the bestest cookie baker in the whole world. That's why, except for one time she accidentally forgot they were in the oven and the fireman had to come to our house. Mrs. laughed, only I don't know why, because that was not a funny story. And after that, she gave me a note from Mother. It was some writing about baking cookies, I think. If your mother has any questions, please tell her to call me, said Mrs. Just then, I got a very great idea. Hey, I said, maybe me and Mother can bring the cookies to your house. And so then I can see where you live. Mrs. rumpled her hair. You don't have to come to my house, Junie B. Just bring the cookies to school on Monday morning. I smiled very sweet. Yeah, only I want to see where you live, I said. Then Mrs. turned around and she walked back to her desk. That's how come I had to follow her. Do you have the rich kind of house or the regular kind of house? I asked her, because I just have the regular kind of house, except for Mother wants the rich kind, only Daddy said, no. Mrs. pointed at my chair. That means to sit down, I think. Yeah, she went, that means to sit down. Yeah, only do you have a daddy that lives at your house too? Are there any pictures of him in your wallet? Let's look at there, okay? Do you have a secret compartment in it? Because my Grandpa Miller has one of those things with $50 in it, only don't tell Grandma. Mrs. took my hand, then me and her walked back to my table. Yeah, only guess what? I'm wondering now. Now I'm wondering what your bedtime is, because my bedtime is when the little hand is at the 7 and the big hand is at the 6. Only I hate that bedtime because I'm not even tired yet, of course. Mrs. put her finger to her lips. That's enough, Junie B, she said. I mean it. I want you to settle down now. Then she went right back to the front of the room and she didn't answer any of my questions. Because guess why? Mrs. is a secret mystery guy. That's why. All right, that's the end of the first 2 chapters of Junie B. Stay tuned for the next 2 chapters and we'll work on our next comprehension strategy. Hopefully you were good visualizers and you asked questions. I'll see you soon.